There is a lot going on right now. In fact, that's kind of an understatement, but I'm going to need multiple videos to just unpack my thoughts here. Because you guys know I've been covering this drone story for months. And just when I thought that the story was going away, and just when it seemed as if everyone was losing interest in the story, all of a sudden the story gets flipped upside down, right on its head, after this email comes out from Matthew Livelsberger, the guy who allegedly went boom, boom, inside of a Cybertruck. Now, I honestly do not know what to believe, and I'm not here to tell you what to believe. Although I do think there are two scenarios that are more likely than all of the other scenarios that are out there. Now, as I've been covering these drones, I've been saying that, hey, my number one theory is that these drones are from China. This is the Chinese military or some sort of, or some other, foreign military, one of our enemies, showing a sign of force, showing and seeing how much they could get away with, penetrating our airspaces, penetrating our defenses, flying over our military bases, our biggest cities, what have you. That's always been my number one theory behind these drones. But my other theory, another likely scenario, is that these drones are the U.S. government. That this is all a gigantic PSYOP to drum up support for something. Are they trying to drum up the Americans' support for war with Iran, China, or Russia? Or are they trying to drum up support for more surveillance? Because what the powers that be, what they do is they cause a problem and then they sell you the solution. So we got to be careful here, because this drone problem could be our own government doing this. So we look to our own government for a solution, and then their solution, of course, will be something that infringes upon our rights and freedoms as everyday Americans. Oh, you're scared of the drones? Well, guess what? We'll bring in our own drones to hover over your house and survey you, and conduct surveillance all day to ensure that you're safe. It's just like with 9/11. When you look at this, there's a lot of stuff directly out the 9/11 playbook. Because you're scared and because you're worried, you got to look to the government for answers. And the answers that the government provides, the solutions always infringe upon your rights and freedoms. And we got to be careful that this is not what's happening here. Now, of course, in Matthew Livelsberger's email, he claims that the drones are from China. He claims that America has some of this technology too. This crazy, almost UFO alien-like propulsion systems and stuff like that, right? And when you look at that, especially someone like me, and it's almost, in a way, I guess you can't say confirming, but if what he's saying is true, it's confirming my theories. When you look at that, it's like you want to believe it, but I have to be hesitant when I look into anything, because there's so many different agendas out here. There's PSYOPs coming from all types of different angles. There's people with motives that me and you can't even imagine that are throwing their 2 cents into the pot. It's just a really overall wild situation. So what you really need to do is you need to take a deep breath and think. Now, this just happened a couple of days ago. We honestly have not been given enough time to really think about what's going on here. So that's kind of what they want. They want you being on your heels, right? That's why every day it's something crazy. Every single day. You never get to chill. You never get to take a breath. You never get to breathe. You never get to rest. They ensure that they're throwing the crazy at you nonstop. So you're never on the offensive. You're on the defensive. You're always backpedaling. Before you could prove one thing is true, you're already trying to prove that 4 other things are true, right? This is kind of the mental state that I feel like the powers that be want us in. They want us in this defensive state, always backpedaling like a UFC fighter, right? We're the ones with our back against the cage backing up, and they're constantly advancing with more and more crazy news stories to throw in our face. Now, when I take a step back and I look at this situation, I feel like China is the most obvious answer, right? I feel like China being behind these drones is the most obvious answer. Because, I mean, you got to think about it. There's not many places on Earth that would be capable of having this technology. And then you look at all of the countries on Earth that may be capable of having this technology. How many of them aren't aligned with the United States? How many of them are someone we would consider an enemy or a threat that we would potentially have a military conflict with? There's only a couple. China being the most obvious answer, because we already had the Chinese spy balloon. We already know for a fact that China has objects in the sky over America spying on us. We know that. And I've already laid this out. I've made multiple videos about it over the past year or so. If you've been subscribed, you've seen them. There have already been several arrests made. People coming from China to America, sometimes even South Korea and other places. They go to these areas around these military bases and they get caught spying on our military bases with drones. It's already happened a half a dozen times. Just in 2024 alone, we have arrested Chinese nationals, foreign exchange students, whatever you want to call it. They've come over here. They've been caught spying on our military bases. So when you look at the drones, I feel like China is the most obvious answer out there. But then you think, hey, maybe that's just a little too obvious. I guess the conspiracy theorist in me, when an answer seems really obvious, it makes me kind of, this is a little too obvious. What else could be going on here, right? Do any of you all get that feeling? Maybe it's just me. I don't know. But it seems almost too obvious. Now, the other scenario, that I think would be the other main scenario here, is that the U.S. is behind this, and they're doing this so they can implement new rules, new regulations, of course regulations not just on drones, but regulations on our everyday lives. Oh, the only way we could stop these crazy Chinese advanced drones from flying over your home is to have our own drones. It's to, we're going to have to build a connected system of U.S. drones flying over America to ensure our safety, when in reality, they're flying over America to spy on us, right? I think that's another scenario that could be very, very likely here. That this is all a psyop to drum up our support for our own downfall. And one thing about it, America has done this so many times in the past. So many times in the past. Where we're looking for comfort, we're looking for security. In exchange, we give away our freedom. Here's a tidbit of freedom for a tidbit of false security, right? We need you to secure us from these drones that you're really operating. So instead of, us being scared of the Chinese drones flying over our house, now we're comforted by the American drones flying over our house that are just there to protect us. Gee golly whiz. So, you got to be very careful not to fall into that trap. And over the past couple of months, I've been doing all I can to not fall into that trap. Because boy, oh boy, do they want to trap people like me and people like you, right? They want to trap us in these psyops. But when you look at things from that angle, okay? Let's take China out the equation. Let's look at this from the angle that this is America behind this, right? This is all a huge psyop to drum up our support for more surveillance, more regulations, and possibly war with the foreign country. Now, if that is the case, don't you think it's weird that the Biden administration and the White House has been saying, oh, these drones don't exist at all? None of this is happening? It's a figment of your imagination. You're seeing things? Like, I feel like if this was a PSYOP and the powers that be wanted to drum up our support for something, they wouldn't deny its existence, would they? You know what I mean? Like, if we're approaching it from the angle that this is a PSYOP, that this is the U.S. government, then you think that the U.S. government would acknowledge that this is a real problem. Of course, they wouldn't say, hey, we're the ones behind it, but they would at least acknowledge that this is a problem. They would throw more fuel on the fire instead of trying to extinguish it. But it seems like they're trying to extinguish this fire. It seems like instead of blowing this story up even more, they've kind of tried to make this story go away, which is the exact opposite of what they would do if they were really trying to capitalize on this story for whatever reason. So that's why I'm so confused here. Because the obvious answer is China, but it's a little too obvious. The other, maybe less obvious answer is that this is a PSYOP coming from right here in America. But if it is, it's like our government can't even get on the same page when it comes to this PSYOP. Because the main people who you think would be leading the PSYOP are denying that this problem even exists at all. So that's why I am in such a weird place when it comes to this story. And I feel like we're being fed nonsense from different angles. I feel like it's almost like a choose your PSYOP story. Have you ever read a story where it's like, all right, you're going to choose which path the person goes down, and the story will end differently, right? It's like a choose your own adventure. This is like a choose your own PSYOP. Is it the Chinese drone PSYOP so we can go to war with China and Iran and what have you? Or is it this PSYOP because we want to implement these restrictions? It's just all really, really weird. And like I said, we're getting so many different stories. We're getting different approaches from different entities, different government entities. Members of Congress are saying this. Local mayors are saying that. The president is saying something else. And it just all feels so weird, so discombobulated. And maybe at the end of the day, that's what they want. But whatever's going on here, there is a clear effort. Like, you could pick whatever scenario you want. There's obviously a clear effort to cause confusion, right? Do you agree? At this point, if you're someone who's been following this story, do you think that there is an effort here to cause confusion? Because that's all we are now. We're all just confused. You know, a lot of people thought, oh, we're not going to hear anything about this story anymore. And then the next thing you know, a Cybertruck blows up outside of Trump Tower. And we got this email about Chinese drones carrying payloads that could wipe out the White House. So, I don't know. It's like I wish I could tell you guys I have the answers. But I don't have the answers. And when I feel like I'm getting close to something, I'll learn more information or something will happen that will turn me off. So it's like one half of me is like, yeah, this is definitely China. I believe the email. The other half of me is like, the FBI probably fabricated this email to drum up even more support for, new rules and regulations to stop the Chinese drones. So I am just totally split and torn when it comes to this story. But the worst and most concerning part about this whole situation is that there is no good outcome. It's not like we're battling over, hey, this is the good scenario and this is the bad scenario. No, every scenario is bad and concerning. Every scenario will have a direct effect on your life. You know what I mean? So, regardless of what's going on here, this is not a problem that we can write off. It's a very real problem. We just don't know what the agenda is behind these problems. And even if you're someone who doesn't even believe that drones are in the sky at all, I can confirm that they are. The drones are very real. I don't know where they're coming from, but they're very real. But even if you're someone that doesn't believe that, even if you're someone that doesn't believe that a single drone is flying in the sky in New Jersey, you still have to ask yourself, well, then why is this story out there? What is the purpose of this story? What's the agenda? What's the motive here? So it's like, regardless of what your beliefs are, regardless of what your opinions are, none of us, not a single one of us, can deny that this is a very real issue. And it's an issue that we're going to have to get to the bottom of. We have to, folks. This isn't one of those things that you could just let slip away and not care anymore. Our lives are at stake. Our country is at stake. The entire world could possibly be at stake here. But what do I know? I'm just the guy that was talking about these drones for months before it became popular to talk about it. Now everyone's talking about it. Welcome to the shit show, everyone. Let me know what you think, though, down in the comments below. While you're down there, hit that thumbs up, hit that subscribe, ring that notification bell, and I'll talk to you all very soon in the next video.